one is going to hurt a lot of people. This is going to hurt a lot of people. This was a well-known individual, and I had the pleasure of knowing him.
The matter is, we have a young male in his 30s that's deceased, and he was pretty much executed.
Every day. Okay. Every day.
The man in that car was a rapper who'd left Washington, D.C. to build a whole new life down south, and his own people had already warned him that he was walking into something dangerous.
When he told me that the guy followed him to his house, he said, Armani, he know where I live at. I said, Martez, you need to leave the girl alone.
His name was Martez, and we are going to give you every piece of what happened to him. But before we get into Martez's story, we have to start with this one. Because what you are about to watch is 3 different love stories from 3 different cities, and every single one of them ends with somebody laid out. Different states, different faces, different weapons, but the same ugly pattern underneath. Somebody could not let go. Somebody was already planning to leave, and by the time the truth came out, it was way too late to fix any of it. We are going to walk you through all 3, and by the time we reach the 3rd one, you are going to see a woman sit in a courtroom and get asked the coldest question a judge can ask a person, and the answer she gives is going to stay with you. We start in Greenville, South Carolina, with a young man named David Edens Jr. and the mother of his child, a woman named Kodesha Bryson. David Marquise Duke Edens Jr. was born on April 22, 1997 in Greenville, and by everybody's account, he was the kind of dude that lit up a room the second he walked in. He went to Carolina Academy, he was the funny one in his circle, and he had a dream a lot of young men in the culture carry, which was to make it as a rapper. He posted his freestyles online under the name Sosa Pack Sour.
We are saying.
Really?
What they told me.
Because they're talking on my name.
Man, they know my
Because they're talking on my name and they know my face. So tell me what they...
He flexed a little, he laughed a lot, and more than anything, he loved being a father.
He's like, that was not bad.
They get madder at I know. Let me put that one in, baby. That's it, baby doll.
He had 2 kids, a son named Amir and a daughter named Kalani, and the people around him kept saying the same thing about him, which was that he put those children first. His cousin remembered him as a good father, a good family person, a good outgoing person, the type to take his kids to the park just to watch them run around and be happy. That is who David was before any of this went bad. Kodesha Bryson was a couple years older than him. She was about 25 in 2019. She worked as a cashier at a McDonald's in Greenville, and that is actually where the 2 of them first crossed paths, somewhere around 2017. She was already a mother, and public records show she had a past run-in with the law, an arrest back in 2016 tied to robbery and assault charges. None of that mattered much in the beginning, because in the beginning it was just 2 young people who caught feelings and started building something. They got together fast, and pretty soon they had a baby girl, born around 2018. For a minute, it looked like a regular young family trying to figure life out, and David's people even took Kodesha in and treated her like one of their own because of the child they shared. His family later said they accepted her as family and never in a million years thought she would be the one to take his life. And that is the part that makes the ending so hard for them, because they opened the door to her before any of the bad stuff ever showed up. And David was really trying to be a father the right way. He was the type to take his son and daughter out to the park, to spend real time with them, to make sure they were laughing, and the people who knew him kept coming back to that same word, which is that he was a great dad. He had his music dreams too, and he chased them the way a lot of young men in the culture do, posting freestyles and flexing his little wins online, always talking about leveling up. He was 22 years old and still figuring out who he was going to be, and by every honest account, he was a good-hearted kid who just wanted his family and his music and some peace. But the relationship did not stay sweet, and it turned into the kind of on-again, off-again thing where nobody could tell if they were together or done from one week to the next. After the baby came, they split up and tried to co-parent, and that is exactly where everything started coming apart. The arguments got constant, the breakups got messy, and instead of keeping the drama between the two of them, it spilled all the way out onto social media where the whole neighborhood could watch it happen.
David started venting online about how tired he was, and he was not shy about it. In one of the clips that got passed around, you can hear the exhaustion in his voice while she is going off in the background, and it tells you everything about where their heads were at.
Huh?
Huh? You heard me.
What you saying?
Why you up there trying to front for them? I cracked your window.
This not my car.
Who party?
It ain't in my name.
You driving it, so you responsible.
I'm taking it back today. It's a rental.
I don't care.
Move!
I'm finna take your tax.
Y'all look at this. She got a 211, y'all. No. Baby got a black and mild behind her ear. No, she losing herself. Baby mama. Baby mama. Why you doing all that?
I want to talk to you.
Where my child at? Can we go take the DNA test today?
Yeah, it's Sunday.
Damn, boy, I wish I never dealt with her, boy, ever again in my life. I had to bag back up. But y'all going in on these comments. Look, look. Oh! Baby mom. Baby mama, I'm tired of you. You doing things that a child will do. Somebody help me, please.
That was not a one-time thing either. There's a longer piece of footage, a video that ran close to 42 minutes, that people say was posted months before he died, and it shows just how deep the toxicity ran between them. In the reporting on that footage, Khadisha is described damaging his car, pouring a drink inside it, and even biting him during a fight over their daughter, while David sat there recording it and basically begging for somebody to step in. In those same recordings, he talked about how he felt he could not even defend himself, how he was scared of getting hit with false accusations that could land him in a cell, and how he wanted a restraining order just so he would have some kind of protection. That is a heavy thing to sit with, a young man documenting his own fear because he did not think anybody would believe him otherwise. The co-parenting piece made everything worse. Instead of the baby being the thing that brought a little calm, she became the center of the fights. There were disputes over who got to see her and when. There were arguments where David suggested a DNA test, and there were times, according to the reporting, when the child was allegedly in the middle of car chases and confrontations between the two of them. So the one thing that should have been off limits, the safety of a 1-year-old, kept getting dragged into grown folks' war. You can hear that same energy in another clip, where he's pleading out loud like a man who already knows nobody is coming to save him.
Baby mama, I'm tired of you. You doing things that a child will do. Somebody help me, please.
That word, help, is going to sit heavy by the time we're done with this first story, because David kept saying it over and over in video after video. And the way the reporting tells it, she was the one who kept the fire going, tracking him, causing scenes, and refusing to let go after he made it clear he was done. He wanted out, and she would not let the door close. And in domestic situations, that specific mix is where a whole lot of people lose their lives. By the fall of 2019, David had made up his mind. He was pulling all the way back. He was moving different, and he was staying at a Motel 6 out on Wade Hampton Boulevard, living a little low while he tried to clear his head. He was telling anybody who would listen that he was finished with the whole thing and finished with her. And then, the night before it all ended, he put one more thought out into the world, a short little message that hits so much harder now than it did when he typed it. On the 18th of November 2019, David posted what turned out to be his final words on social media, and it read almost like a promise to himself. He wrote, "All I know is I will stay single for life before I enter another toxic-ass relationship. Facts." He was done. He was speaking it into existence. He wanted peace, and he wanted his kids, and he wanted nothing else to do with the drama that had been draining him for over a year. Less than 24 hours later, he was gone.
Deputies have found one person dead inside a Motel 6 in Greenville. 7 News' Jennifer Martin live along Wade Hampton Boulevard with more. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, good morning. Yes, here we're at the Motel 6, which is off of Wade Hampton Boulevard near Wade Hampton High School and the Fine Arts Center. And investigators were here all morning. They left here at about 6:30 a.m. and they were spending a lot of time on the 3rd floor here of the motel, going in and out of rooms. And according to the coroner's report, one of those rooms was where this man who was found dead lived, and the window outside of that room was shattered. We have video of that just to give you a closer look. Now, Greenville County deputies arrived here late last night responding to a reported burglary. That's when they found that man inside of one of those rooms with a wound. The coroner's office did identify that man as 22-year-old David M. Edens Jr. He was pronounced dead at the scene, and the coroner's office estimates that time of injury and death was around 10:35 last night. So an autopsy will be performed later today to determine the cause and manner of death. But several people who were coming in and out told me they didn't hear anything last night, and this is the first time they've noticed anything unusual, except one person told me they did hear a woman screaming loudly around that time of night. However, I did talk to one woman who just said that she's a little concerned living here.
Here's what the sheriff's office and the local reporting laid out about that night. On the 19th of November, around 10:35 in the evening, deputies got a call to that Motel 6 on Wade Hampton Boulevard. And the call didn't even come in as a shooting at first. It came in as a burglary, because somebody was up there breaking out windows on the upper floor of the motel, including windows of rooms that had nothing to do with anybody involved. That somebody was Khadisha. According to the reporting, she showed up at that motel looking for David, and she went window to window, smashing glass and yelling for him to come out, until she found the room he was in. A guest at the motel that night heard the whole thing, the shouting, the chaos, somebody screaming for David to come outside before the shot rang out.
I just went in my room. I stayed in there. It's the first time I've been out since last.
Think about how much had to happen for her to even get to that room. She had to know where he was staying. She had to get there, and then she had to work her way through window after window in the dark, hunting, while the whole floor could hear her. That's a long stretch of time for anybody to change their mind and turn around, and she did not turn around. And when she finally got to him, an argument jumped off inside that room, and it ended with a gunshot. David Edens Jr. was hit, and he died right there, 22 years old, in a budget motel room over a relationship he'd already told the world he was leaving.
The coroner ruled it a homicide. Khadisha ran from the scene that night, but the next morning she turned herself in at the Greenville County Law Enforcement Center, and she got charged with murder, possession of a weapon during a violent crime, and malicious damage for all those broken windows. That same day, they brought her into bond court, and this is where the case turned into something the whole internet ended up watching. David's family packed that courtroom, and while they sat there hurting, Khadisha stood up and gave a tearful apology, telling them the gun went off by accident and that she never meant to hurt him. Listen to how the family walked into that room, still stuck on the one question nobody could answer for them.
We just want to know why. He left his kids, he left his family. The rest is around the holidays, and we just want to know why. He's a good father, good family person, good outgoing person. The question is just why.
And then listen to her answer them, because this is the moment that made people all over the country pick a side. The gun went off. That was the explanation, but the family and the prosecution were not buying it, and you can understand why. Because think about what led up to that room. She did not just happen to be there. The way the state saw it, she tracked him down, drove to that motel, broke through window after window hunting for him, and only stopped when she found him. That is a lot of steps for something people want you to believe was just an accident. The judge heard all of it and denied her bond because of how serious the charges were.
The woman accused of killing the father of her child inside a Greenville motel last night has been denied bond.
Investigators say she knocked out windows of other rooms looking for the victim. 7 News reporter Kimberly Brown has been following the story, and she has all the details.
We are in front of the Greenville County Detention Center where Khadijah Bryson is now behind bars, accused of killing her baby's father. Now a family is planning a funeral before they plan their holidays.
Now here is where the story gets even more painful, because David Sr., the father, had to sit and talk about burying his son during the holidays, and even in his grief he was trying to be fair about it. In the reporting, he made a point that stuck with a lot of people, which is that in a situation like this, nobody actually wins. His son was gone. Her kids were about to grow up without their mother because of where she was headed. A baby girl lost both of her parents in a single night. There is no version of this where anybody comes out okay. David's cousin spoke on it too, and she pushed back on the apology, because from where the family sat, saying sorry did not line up with everything Khadijah did to get to that room.
Behind, left his kids behind. I mean, her daughter has the mother's in jail now. The dad is gone. He has a son. And the question is why? You had time to think. You weren't looking for him.
The family was loud and clear about wanting real accountability, and you can hear that in how they carried themselves through the whole thing. There is a bigger picture around all of this too, and it is worth naming. This was a domestic situation that had already spilled out in public for months before it turned deadly, and it fits a pattern that shows up over and over in these stories, where firearms end up involved in a huge share of intimate partner killings. All the warning signs were out in the open, the arguments were on video, the fear was on video. David basically wrote his own goodbye without knowing it, and still there was no system in place fast enough to get between the two of them before it was too late. They laid David to rest at the end of that month, and the family has kept his memory going ever since, playing his music, sharing his pictures, keeping his name alive for the 2 kids he left behind. One relative said they play his songs every single day because it gives them inspiration, which is a beautiful thing to hold on to and a brutal reminder all at once, because those songs are all that's left of a young man who was still trying to become something. As for Khadijah, her case has dragged on in a way that has frustrated a lot of people watching it. Based on the reporting that's publicly out there, the case moved slow through the court system, with delays stacking up year after year, and she's stayed locked up in Greenville County the whole time waiting on the process to finish. The defense has always pushed the line that it was a heat-of-the-moment accident with no plan behind it, while the state has always pointed to that deliberate search through the motel as proof it was anything but. Whatever a jury eventually decides, the core of it doesn't really change. A young father who told the world he just wanted peace got killed by the mother of his child inside a motel room, and a little girl has to grow up carrying that. So, that's our first story out of South Carolina. A man who saw the danger, said it out loud, and still couldn't get away from it in time. Now we head to Texas, to the man we opened with, because his story starts 1,000 miles away in the projects of Washington, D.C., and it's a story about a young man who did almost everything right. Martez Hurt was born around 1992 in Washington, D.C., and he came up in some of the roughest parts of the city, in low-income neighborhoods where a young black man is not exactly handed a roadmap to success. But Martez had a different kind of motor in him from the time he was a kid. He was a hustler in the purest sense of the word, and he actually earned his rap name, Money-Makin' Martez.
Back in high school, by selling sodas and water out on the streets to stack whatever money he could. And that grind paid off in a way that almost never happens. By the time he was 17, Martez had pulled together around $150,000 in scholarships through the DC College Success Foundation, a program backed by heavy hitters, and he got accepted to more than 30 colleges. This was a kid from the projects who studied his way out, and he picked Florida A&M University down in Tallahassee to study criminal justice. That is a real success story, the kind you want to see, a young man taking every hard thing about his childhood and turning it into fuel. He was honest about the fact that he did not handle all that scholarship money perfectly. He later admitted that he blew through a lot of it on the college life and ended up broke before he even graduated, which is a very human thing for a young man who went from having nothing to suddenly having a real bag in his hands for the first time. But even that became part of his hustle story, because instead of folding, he doubled down and built himself back up through pure work. At FAMU, he leaned into music as a way to tell his own story, going from struggle to something better, and he wanted his songs to actually mean something to the youth coming up behind him.
We get high every day. I get high every day just to ease the pain. I was out at the bus stop when it was raining. All I knew in my life was keep maintaining. Couldn't be around people who had my energy draining. Had to focus on my goals, Couldn't focus on you hoes, that's a no.
He dropped a mixtape in 2013 called Boss, which stood for Built on Self-Success, and that phrase basically became his whole personality. He performed at homecoming, he built a real local buzz, and he ended up sharing stages with big names like Kendrick Lamar, Juvenile, Currency, and Bobby Shmurda. He was not a household name, but he was out here doing the independent artist thing the right way, selling his own CDs all over the country, moving his own merch, and building a following by networking like his life depended on it. He turned that grind into a whole brand. He launched his Boss clothing line, moving shirts for $40 and hoodies for $60, and he took his story into schools as a motivational speaker, standing in front of kids who came from the same kind of neighborhoods he came from and telling them it was possible to get out. His friends described his whole approach as an I can't stop, won't stop kind of energy, and you can feel that when you look back at how much he packed into a short life. Martez went through real pain too. His mother passed in 2015, and he talked openly about how that loss nearly pulled him down into a dark place, and how his music is part of what saved him. You can actually feel that spiritual side of him in the footage that exists, like this radio moment where the whole conversation was about protecting his light and staying prayed up as he climbed, and about the move he was getting ready to make.
But Sister Rogers, I just want to let you know that Martez Hurt said he's going to be moving soon to Houston, Texas. So when you come down, when he come down there, you make sure that you get the church, the saints, the sinners, the Christians, the doubters, the non-believers. Let's lead them to the kingdom and tell them to go get a boss sweatshirt or a boss something to say that they are boss over their lives of self-success because they was built by God. Amen.
That was the plan. Martez was moving to Texas to chase bigger opportunities, to keep his businesses going, and to build the next chapter of his life. Friends said he had met some people from Houston while he was in college, and they convinced him the Lone Star State was where the money and the moves were. So he made the jump, and for a while it looked like just another bold decision from a man who had been making bold decisions his whole life. Down in Texas, Martez started dating a woman named Iris Davis, and this is where the title of this whole thing comes in, and where we have to be straight with you about the facts, because the sensational version of this story that floats around online is not exactly what the record shows. Some accounts frame it like he was messing with a friend's wife, but the actual reporting is more specific than that. Iris Davis was the ex-wife of a man named Matthew Rashawn Jacobs, and Jacobs was not the type to let go of a marriage that was already over. That is the real danger Martez walked into. Iris and Jacobs had a whole history, they shared children, and their split was ugly.
The reporting shows that back in March of 2020, deputies had already responded to 3 domestic violence calls involving Jacobs and his ex-wife, months before Martez ever entered the picture. So the tension was already there and already boiling before Martez was even a factor. When he started dating Davis, all of that heat just turned in his direction. And it got physical between the two men. Martez told a friend that about 2 months before he died, he and Jacobs got into a straight-up fistfight in a Target parking lot off the highway. But the part that should have scared everybody was what happened the very next morning, when Jacobs allegedly got into Martez's vehicle using keys and a GPS tracking device and sat in there waiting with a gun. Think about that for a second. A grown man tracking another man's car, getting inside of it and sitting there in the dark with a weapon, waiting. That is not a heated argument anymore. That is not 2 men who bumped heads over a woman. That is a man who has already made up his mind about how he wants this to end and is just waiting on the moment to do it. Martez's friends knew about the feud, and they described it as this ongoing thing, tense, full of joking that could rub people the wrong way, but they said they never in a million years thought it would turn into somebody getting killed. That's the hard part about these situations. The people around it can see the smoke, that something is off, but almost nobody expects the fire to actually catch, until it does. Martez knew it too. He believed Jacobs had put a tracking device on his ex-wife's car or her phone because Jacobs kept showing up at random times, even sending pictures of vehicles parked outside at night to let them know he was watching. His friend broke it down like this.
His husband was waiting inside of the vehicle with a gun.
Vaughn says Hurt believed Jacobs was stalking his ex.
I think the ex-husband put a tracking device on her car or either her phone, so he would pull up sometimes when they would be chilling at night and like send pictures of her vehicle parked outside.
So everybody around Martez could see the storm coming. His friends knew about the feud, his family knew about the stalking, and the people who loved him started telling him the same thing, which was that he needed to walk away from this whole situation before it turned into something nobody could take back. The person who tried the hardest to pull Martez out was his aunt, Marlene Hurt Icahn, and the way she tells it, she saw exactly where this was headed. Martez had confided in her that Jacobs had followed him all the way home, which meant this man knew where he laid his head. That terrified her, and she told him straight up to leave the girl alone and get out of it. And Martez, being Martez, promised her he would. He just did not move fast enough.
He told me that the guy followed him to his house. He said, Armani, he know where I live at. I said, Martez, you need to leave the girl alone.
He know where I live at. That is what Martez said back to her. He understood the danger, he named it out loud, and he still could not get clear of it in time. It is the exact same trap David Eddins was caught in a state away, a person who saw the threat coming and simply ran out of time to escape it. The morning of October 26, 2020, started off like nothing was wrong. Martez even posted something positive online just before it happened, a message that said, "You deserve all good things life has to offer." Less than an hour later, he was dead. Here's how it went down according to the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office and the surveillance footage they recovered. Around 8:30 in the morning, Martez and Eris pulled up to her home in the Sienna neighborhood of Missouri City, out on Amethyst Isle Lane, a quiet cul-de-sac in a nice suburb. And Jacobs was already there. The way deputies described it, he had followed them into the neighborhood and was waiting for them to come back. Eris got out of the vehicle, and right as she stepped away, Jacobs walked up and opened fire into the car through the window.
But the fact of the matter is, we have a young male in his 30s that's deceased, and he was pretty much executed. He walked right up to the window of that vehicle that went through that fence and fired several rounds through that front passenger window. And then he walked off.
Martez was hit, and he tried to get away. He hit the gas to escape, lost control, and crashed the car straight through a neighbor's fence, where he ended up in the backyard, still inside the vehicle. And then, in the coldest part of the whole thing, Jacobs walked up on the crashed car and fired several more rounds through the driver's side window to finish it. That's the part the neighbor heard. The 2 shots, the scream, the pause, and then the volley that followed.
I hear 2 shots simultaneously, and then I hear a scream, but it also kind of sounded like an engine screeching. About 30 seconds or so, not even 30, probably like 15 seconds pass by, and then I hear either 3 or 4 more shots, followed by another scream.
The sheriff at the time did not mince words about what kind of act this was. He looked at the surveillance. He saw a man calmly walk up and gun down another man in his car and then stroll away, and he called it exactly what it looked like, an execution. Neighbors said the same thing, that they watched Jacobs walk to his car with the gun still in his hand like he had all the time in the world. Jacobs then got in his own car and drove off, and for about 3 hours there was a manhunt while schools in the area got put on alert and deputies warned people not to approach him because he was considered armed and dangerous.
I think that you, the media, and your listeners can help, your viewers. They can help us locate this individual. And again, do not try to apprehend him in any form or fashion. If you see that vehicle traveling around these county roadways, call us. Call 911 if you have to.
Eventually, on the advice of his attorney, Jacobs turned himself in to Missouri City Police and got charged with murder.
Andy, that news coming from the sheriff within the last 15 minutes, he tells us that the man that they have been looking for the last several hours is now in custody. We have a photo of the suspect who is now in the custody of Missouri City Police. This man, Matthew Rashawn Jacobs, in his 30s, we're told by Sheriff Troy Nels, turned himself into Missouri City Police within the last hour. Per the advice of his attorney, deputies say the next step, he'll be charged with murder. Deputies say around 8:30 this morning that the suspect was spotted on surveillance camera in the neighborhood trailing his ex-wife and her boyfriend as they drove up to their Siena home. Deputies say there was an altercation. Jacobs got out of his car and fired his gun toward the couple's car. We're told that his ex-wife was able to get out of the car in time, but the suspect walked up to the car and fired more shots, injuring the woman's boyfriend. The boyfriend tried to drive off, but ended up losing control of his vehicle and crashed into a fence where he died inside of his car.
For the people who knew Martez, this was the worst kind of news, the kind you keep hoping is a mistake or a bad joke. One of his closest friends described the weight of it in a way that says everything about who Martez was to his circle. And it did hurt a lot of people.
This one is going to hurt a lot of people. This is going to hurt a lot of people. This was a well-known individual, and I had the pleasure of knowing him for a lot of years.
This was a man his family described as a jokester and a businessman from a young age, somebody who came from nothing and built himself into something through pure will. His people had to start a GoFundMe just to bring his body back home to D.C. because the whole point of his life had been chasing a future, and now they were planning a funeral instead. His aunt said she hadn't slept, and that if she could ask Jacobs one thing, it would simply be why. Why walk up to a man's car at 8:30 in the morning and shoot him up like that when all Martez was trying to do was leave the situation in peace?
I can't believe it.
Marlene Hurt Ecom says she hasn't slept in the last 24 hours.
What was he thinking? You know, at that moment when he got the first bullet.
The reporting placed this inside a bigger picture too. This all happened during the pandemic stretch, and local leaders were sounding the alarm that domestic violence had jumped hard during that time. In one nearby county, reporters noted domestic violence-related deaths had climbed to 24, up from 17 the year before, and the one domestic violence resource center in Fort Bend County had already helped hundreds of survivors that year.
Once the stay-at-home order was lifted, survivors were able to get more access to phones where they could talk privately and were able to call for help.
That is the ugly backdrop to all three of these stories. This was never really about a rap beef or industry drama, no matter how the flashy titles online try to sell it. This was a domestic violence murder, plain and simple, driven by a man who could not accept that his marriage was over and turned all that rage onto the new man in his ex-wife's life. His aunt kept circling back to the same word. Why? Because none of it made sense to her. She had begged him to walk away. He had promised he would, and the timeline was just cruel. He gave the word to leave, and before he could actually make that move, this man was outside a home at 8:30 in the morning putting rounds into his car. His people had to lean on each other to even get through the week. His cousins started a GoFundMe just to raise the money to bring his body back home to DC, and it got shared all over the Siena community because so many people who barely knew him still felt the weight of how senseless it was. His best friends said they had been deep in the middle of working on music videos together, that they really believed the best days were still in front of them, and now instead of shooting visuals, they were planning a funeral.
Yeah, his best friends say that they were doing a lot of work on music videos together, and they were hoping that the best days of their lives were ahead of them. Today, they are making plans for a funeral.
That is what got stolen. Not just a life, but a whole future that a lot of people were building on together. As for Jacobs, he was indicted on a first-degree murder charge in early 2021, and the case moved through the Fort Bend County court system from there. What Martez leaves behind is his music, still up on Spotify and Apple Music, still carrying those messages about hustle and self-success that he built his name on. A young man who studied his way out of the projects, who shared stages with legends, who wanted to be a role model, and who got taken over another man's inability to let go. That's two stories now, two men who both saw it coming and both got caught anyway. Our third and final story flips the script in a way that's going to sit different with you, because this time the person who did the killing is a woman, the victim is a devoted father, and what she did after she took his life is honestly harder to stomach than the killing itself. This one takes us up to Cleveland, Ohio, and it centers on a 32-year-old woman named Diamond Vaden and the man she was on and off with for years, George Cox Jr. George, who everybody called June or Junebug, was born on October 6, 1992 in Cleveland, and his family paints a picture of a man who was pure light. He was the life of the party, the one who never met a stranger, the type to pull off some off-the-wall prank and have the whole room dying laughing. He worked his way up to a supervisor role in transportation. He did training and got certifications, and above everything else, he was a father. He had a daughter named Gianna, and he called her the best part of him. His people told story after story about him at the sentencing, and the details paint the picture better than anything. His aunt talked about the first time he ever made pancakes from scratch as a kid, how proud he was that he could make something from nothing, and how she started calling him the Pancake King, because after that he never wanted the boxed kind again. And she told how the Christmas before he died, June walked into her house with 2 bags full of toys for Gianna, asking to hide them there so his daughter would not find them early because he wanted her to feel the same Christmas magic he had felt growing up. His own father shared his location with him at all times, so the two of them always knew where the other one was, and that's a small detail that turns into a nightmare later. That's the George his people want you to remember, a man built around his little girl. Diamond Vaden was 32 as well, also from Cleveland, and the public record on her before all this is thin. What is known is that she had prior convictions tied to drugs and weapons, and that her relationship with George was the kind people describe as volatile, on again and off again, good one week and bad the next. She would later stand in a courtroom and try to describe it in her own words.
Me and George had an up and down relationship. It was good, it was bad, it was not always perfect, but I am a person that is a loving and caring person. And one thing about me, I'm not a person that's going to hurt you for no reason, or I'm not a type of person that's just going to just bully you or just put you in harm's way. So I do want to say I'm sorry for the family. I have got to know them. They really didn't get to know me, so they just seen one side of a relationship. They didn't really see the side you know, that I brought. But I do appreciate my family for supporting me. They've been here through this whole process. Mentally, I'm still trying to figure everything out, but it was a reason why God brought me here, to keep me safe, honestly. Because I actually was not safe. I was not safe with him, and I was not safe in the community. And like I said, it's unfortunate, but I'm very, very, very sorry.
Up and down, that is how she framed it. But what happened on October 18th, 2024 was not just another bad night in an up and down thing. It was the night George Cox Jr. lost his life, and the details of it are the reason this case blew up the way it did. The two of them got into a fight inside the apartment where George was staying. During that fight, Diamond stabbed him multiple times in the abdomen, and here is where it goes from a tragedy to something colder. Because George did not die right away. He was on the floor, bleeding, still alive, and instead of calling 911, instead of getting him help, Diamond picked up her phone and typed a question into Google. She searched, "What are the chances to survive in real life if you get stabbed in the abdomen multiple times?" Let that sit for a second. A man is bleeding out in front of her, asking her to save him, and she is Googling how long it takes for someone in his exact situation to die. She did not call for help. She waited. She watched him go. And the judge who handled her sentencing later walked her through that exact moment in front of the whole courtroom, and it is one of the heaviest exchanges you will ever hear. She admitted it. She had the chance, and she did not take it. When the judge pressed her on why a man was begging her to save him and she just let it happen, her answer was that she panicked.
How did he die? What happened?
He was beat up and he was stabbed.
By?
By me.
Did you do this Google search? Asking if somebody was stabbed in the abdomen, how long it would take them to survive? Was he alive after you had stabbed him in the abdomen? And he was bleeding out? So you had an opportunity to call 911 on his behalf. The detective said that there's blood all over the house. Did he go to different areas of the house while he was bleeding? Was he unable to get to the phone? And why was that?
He was kind of just like in shock, I guess. He kept falling, and I was basically trying to stop him from moving so I could help him.
Did he want to leave the house?
No.
Did he ask you to call for help?
He just told me to save him, try to save him.
And why didn't you?
Save him?
He's asking, he's bleeding out, there's blood all over the house, this has taken a long period of time. You've Google searched, how long does it take someone to die after being stabbed in the abdomen multiple times?
Just panic, I panicked.
But what she did next is hard to line up with panic, because panic is fast and messy, and this was slow and calculated. After George died, Diamond did not confess, and she did not run to the police. Instead, she called some people she knew to help her get rid of his body. They wrapped him up in a bedsheet taken from the floor of that same apartment. They bound him with marine-style rope, the kind you would use to tie up a boat, and they drove him more than an hour away and dumped him into the Huron River like he was nothing, like he was trash. Then she cleaned up her life and moved on. She moved out of the picture. She got with a new man, and for a long stretch it looked like she might actually get away with it, because George's family had no idea he was dead. All they knew was that their son, their brother, the father of that little girl, had gone silent. The last time anybody in his family heard from George was around October 19th, 2024. After that, nothing. No calls back, no texts, no answers. and this from a man who talked to his mother nearly every single day. His father, George Sr., got more and more worried, and eventually he went over to the apartment himself to look for his son. What he found was an empty unit, cleaned out, but with signs that somebody had tried to scrub blood off the floor. He called the Cleveland police, and when detectives came out and sprayed the chemical that makes hidden blood glow in the dark, the whole place lit up. Walls, floors, doors, everywhere. That blood came back as George's. When detectives went and talked to Diamond a few days after that, she looked them in the face and denied everything. She claimed she had never even been in that apartment, but investigators spotted a pair of boots in her place that appeared to have blood on them. And when she got asked about them, she said they weren't even hers, that they were George's boots. They tested the blood on those boots, and it came back as George's DNA. So already, before they even found his body, the lies were piling up on top of each other. So now the police knew something terrible had happened, but they still did not have a body, and they did not have George. His family was about to spend 7 long months not knowing where he was, holding on to hope that maybe, somehow, he was still out there alive. For 7 months, the Cox family lived in that special kind of hell that comes with a missing person, where you cannot grieve and you cannot heal because you do not even know for sure what you are grieving. George's father later said he traveled back and forth 26 times over those 7 months chasing answers, and every single time he made that drive, he passed right over the Huron River, not knowing his son's body was in the water right near him the whole time. The answer finally came on May 16, 2025, and it came by pure chance. 2 people out kayaking on the Huron River spotted a body floating in a marshy stretch of the water. It was badly decomposed after all that time, still wrapped and still bound. And the moment investigators saw how it was tied up, they knew this was no accident and no natural death.
Back on May 16th, a kayaker found a body in a Huron River marsh. That body remains unidentified. So now the sheriff's office is hoping the public will be able to identify some of the tattoos on that body. Take a good look. These are some possibly recognizable tattoos on the Erie County John Doe. Law enforcement is hoping someone might know who or what organizations they belong to.
Study the tattoos, talk to people, anybody that does tattoos or anybody that has knowledge of gangs within Toledo to Cleveland, give us a call. We'd be more than happy to listen to you.
They were able to identify him through tattoos that were still visible on his body, and DNA later confirmed it. That bedsheet he was wrapped in matched sheets from the apartment where his blood was found, which tied everything straight back to the crime scene. And here's a detail that tells you exactly the kind of person the state was dealing with. On the very same day George's body was found, Diamond was in a text argument with her new boyfriend who was not answering her fast enough, and she sent him a message that read, "You gonna be missing next. You going to be missing next." On the same day they pulled her dead ex out of a river, that is what she typed to the next man in her life. When the medical examiner did the autopsy, the body was so far gone that the official cause and manner of death had to be listed as undetermined. But even with that, the doctor noted that the way the body was hidden and dumped pointed to a death that was anything but natural. And the investigation itself indicated George had died a violent death. So the physical evidence and the digital evidence carried the case, where the decomposition took away the rest. Once they had the body and the evidence, it moved fast. On July 21, 2025, Cleveland police arrested Diamond at the new place she was sharing with her boyfriend, and they recovered a firearm from the home. A few days later, a grand jury indicted her on a stack of charges, including 2 counts of murder, felonious assault, tampering with evidence, and gross abuse of a corpse. The case eventually landed on a plea deal, where those murder counts got knocked down to involuntary manslaughter, felonious assault, and gross abuse of a corpse, with the state coming into sentencing pushing for the maximum time the deal allowed. Then came the sentencing hearing in March of 2026, and this is the part the whole internet ended up watching, because the judge, Richard Bell, refused to just rubber stamp the deal and move on. He made Diamond stand there and account for every single piece of what she did, and he did not let her hide behind soft language. He walked her all the way through it, the stabbing, the Google search, the body. And at one point, he pinned her down on the most basic fact of all.
How did he die? What happened?
He was beat up and he was stabbed.
By?
By me.
By me. She finally had to say it out loud. The family got to speak too, and it was gutting. George's mother thanked the court for working so hard to find her son and said no amount of time could ever replace the loss of her baby. His aunt, who had no children of her own and loved June like he was hers, stood there and begged the judge to go past the plea deal, saying it would not surprise her if this woman had done something like this before.
And, Your Honor, for somebody to do what they did to my nephew, it wouldn't surprise me if they have done this before. How can somebody do something so terrible?
And another aunt, a chaplain, read a statement about forgiving Diamond because of her faith, while still asking that she be punished, because both of those things can live in a person at the same time. Then George's father stood up. He had made that drive back and forth for 7 months, and now he had to describe what he saw when he finally went to identify his son. A body so far gone that they couldn't even give him a normal funeral. He said they had to cremate him because he couldn't put his boy in the ground looking like that, and that his granddaughter later asked him why he burned up his daddy, a question he's going to have to answer for her one day. He talked about how George had been trying to leave the situation, how all he had to do was pick up the phone and call 911, and how instead she drove his body over an hour away and pulled other people into helping her hide him. The pain in that courtroom was thick, and it never let up.
Then the detective spoke, and his words became the headline. Detective Kevin Callahan, a man who had been a cop for nearly 30 years and a missing persons detective for 15, said this was the first time in his whole career he ever felt the need to make a statement like this. He warned the judge not to be fooled by how calm and polished Diamond looked, and he gave her a name that stuck: a wolf in sheep's clothing. He went on to call her a master manipulator who lacks any resemblance of a moral compass, somebody who could look you dead in the eye and lie and make you believe it.
With Diamond Faden, Your Honor, don't be fooled. She is well-spoken, polite, intelligent, and presents herself well. What you are looking at, Your Honor, is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Over my 30 years, Diamond can lie and manipulate like no one I have ever encountered. She will look you in the eye, knowingly lie, and be very believable all the same. It's a terrible talent she certainly possesses. While conducting this investigation and learning how she communicates and interacts with people before and certainly after her arrest, Diamond will manipulate, use, deceive anybody, including family, to get what she wants. She is the master manipulator. She has no limitations on her manipulation or deception to get what she wants. In short, everything about Diamond Faden is centered around Diamond Faden.
When it was all said and done, the judge handed her a sentence of 19 years and 7 months up to a possible 25 years. And through the whole thing, she barely showed a flicker of emotion.
Your sentence is 19 years and 7 months. You are to serve a minimum prison term of 19 years and 7 months with an indefinite prison term of 5.5 years. For the maximum prison term, then, I believe 25.2 years, or 25, just say 25 years, 2 months.
Now, if you think a case this cold is one of a kind, it is not, and that is the scary part. There's a case out of Florida that runs almost parallel to it, the case of Sarah Boone. Back in 2020, Boone and her boyfriend George Torres Jr. had a volatile on and off relationship with a documented history of domestic violence on both sides, which already sounds familiar. One night, they had been drinking a bottle of wine and got to playing a game where he climbed inside a suitcase and she zipped it shut.
Instead of letting him out, she recorded videos taunting him while he begged for air, telling him things like, "That is what you get." Then she went upstairs and fell asleep and left him zipped in there for hours until he suffocated.
I can't breathe, babe. Seriously.
Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me.
So then it's like, we decided to play hide and seek, right? Okay. So it's in the suitcase. The problem is I fell asleep. I fell asleep.
When she called for help the next morning, she claimed she had just fallen asleep and forgot he was in there.
Exactly what happened there?
My boyfriend and I were playing last night, and I put him in a suitcase and we were playing, and like kind of hide and seek kind of thing. So I fell asleep and I woke up and he was dead in the suitcase. So I don't know what happened.
Okay, is he hanging from somewhere or what, ma'am?
No, I pulled him out of the suitcase. I tried giving him CPR.
Just like Diamond, the digital evidence is what buried her. Video of a person choosing not to help while someone died right in front of them, which blew a hole straight through the accident story. The main difference is how it ended in court. Boone took her case to trial and got life in prison with no parole, while Diamond took a plea and got a number instead. Two different women, two different states, but the same chilling thing at the center. Somebody who had every chance to save a life and instead sat there and watched it end. So there you have it, 3 love stories and 3 graves. David Edens told the world he was done with a toxic relationship and got hunted down in a motel for it. Martez Hurt built himself up out of the DC projects, moved to Texas for a fresh start, and got ambushed by a man who could not let his ex-wife go. And George Cox Jr. bled out on his own floor while the person who was supposed to love him searched the internet to see how long he had left. Different cities, different weapons, same exact route. Somebody could not accept that it was over. If there is one thing to take from all 3, it is this. When a person tells you they're scared, when they say somebody knows where they stay, when they post that they just want out, that is not them being dramatic. That is often the last warning anybody gets. David said it, Martez said it, and the signs were there for George too. The people around them heard it, but nobody could move fast enough. Rest in peace to David Edens Jr., to Martez Hurt, and to George Cox Jr. If you or somebody you love is stuck in a situation that feels like it's turning dangerous, please do not wait it out and hope it fixes itself, because these 3 stories are what waiting can cost. Drop a comment if one of these cases hit you, and if you know somebody who needs to hear this, send it to them, because it might be the thing that gets them to move in time.